All right, so one of the things that I've been trying to get to, and I'm at my desk right now, so if things are super noisy and you guys can't hear me or it gets really distracting, let me know and I'll go sequester myself in a room somewhere. Um, does it sound okay to you guys, or is it horrible?
Sounds okay.
Okay,
Sounds good here.
okay, all right, we'll keep going then. All right, so one of the things that I've wanted to show you guys for a few weeks, and we just haven't had time for me to go through that, is a couple of the plugins that I have loaded in my Revit, which help me sort of be more productive with the things that I need to do, specifically family creation and exporting tools. Um, I think I may have mentioned it before. I know I've mentioned it to a couple of individual people. Um, but one of the things that's really helpful for me is a plugin called Parameter Jerk, um, which let me pull up the website for it. Um,
Just for record, parameter jerk is awesome.
so it's made by, from what I can tell, it's just one guy who likes making things for Revit.
Are you showing something on your screen right now, Luke?
I am, except I need to hit the button or it doesn't work. Whoop. Let me know when that comes up. All right. Thanks, Sean. Okay. This is the Parameter Jerk website. Basically, just go into Google and search for Parameter Jerk, and it's the first one that
Can
comes
other
up.
people see Luke's screen right now?
I got the thumbs up from Sean. Did anybody else get it?
I got it.
So
We can
everyone.
see it.
It's a little slow, like it's a bit of a delay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Go. Continue.
That's okay. So Parameter Jerk. It's the first one that comes up, this Mertens 3D, and I think Mertens is the guy's last name. Download, install, you download it, and install it just like any other Revit plugin. And then once it's installed on your machine, you get this, under your add-in tab, you get this Mertens 3D. And the first one, as you can see, brings it to the website, and the second one is the actual plugin. You have to be inside of a family in order to open and run the plugin. Like, there's different tools which are available based on whether you're in a family or in a project, and the ones that Parameter Jerk uses, you need to be inside the family tools or else it can't access the things that it needs to access. I don't know what those things are, but I know that that's how it works.
Hey, Luke. Do we want to put this? Do we want to put this plugin in the BombGen Dropbox folder so everyone can have it?
We can do that. I think I have it saved on the S drive right now under the Revit plugins.
Yeah, just an idea. It could be confusing for people who don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a whole mess of plugins that I sometimes use or tried out once or whatever inside my add-ins, so I don't want to subject everybody to all of my madness. But if this becomes something that everybody uses, which I think it might, then yeah, maybe we should move it into the standard thing, and then it'll put it where it needs to go and auto-update and all of those lovely things that Josh and Jeremy have worked out with the BOM application as well. But for right now, if you want to install it, Revit plugins, it's this Parameter Jerk, and I don't exactly remember what it unzips, but I know there's the add-in that you need to add into your add-ins directory, and I'm going to say add once more in this sentence. But after you be inside of Revit, inside of Family, run the plugin, and you can just be careful because sometimes you can have run it already. Like right now, I don't really know that the plugin is running unless I go down here to my Revit. So I've accidentally had like 3 or 4 versions of Parameter Jerk running at the same time. And it doesn't really matter, but like I ran it once and then went to my log to see what happened, but I went to the wrong log window, so it didn't show me anything, so I was just confused. But so yeah, if you open it, it'll stay open even after you run it until you hit close, and then if you go up here and run it again, it'll open a second version of it. So now you can see I have 2 of them, so just be careful that you're not doing that. But basically what parameter jerk does is that, this should look familiar to most of you, in that these are the parameters which are in the shared parameter file. It's been a while since I set it up, but I think it automatically knows what your shared parameter file is. I don't think you have to manually tell it where that is. It just reads it from your Revit. But the nice thing about it is that you can create sets of parameters. So you can see over here I have doors exterior, doors interior, electrical fixtures. And the way that you create these is under the second tab, the Edit Sets tab. So create a new set, delete a set, rename a set. And then when you have any set selected, you can see over on the right-hand side, these are the parameters which are a part of that set. And you have the add remove, sort of similar to the way that you work with schedules in Revit. So let's say I think my action parameter actually should be over there. So if I select the set, select the parameter that I want to add to the set, and add it, now you can see blue action shows up in the members of that set. So this is how I have been maintaining which parameters need to be applied to which objects or which family categories. And you can see once I've created a set, if I select the casework set over here, it selects all those parameters and highlights them in blue here. The other thing, probably the only other thing that you need to know about this window, well, two things, I guess. One, you have the group parameter under, and that's just like the text box when you're creating a parameter from scratch inside the family editor. It has a place where it wants to save that parameter, or where it wants to group that parameter inside here. So you can see here's the text heading. If I go into my parameter jerk window, you can see that that is organized under text, and it gives you all the different options for how to group that. The other thing that it gives you is this column where if you have the box checked, it will be an instance parameter, and if you don't have it checked, it'll be a type parameter. Again, it's just mimicking the functionality of this right here. Oh yeah, and here's the group parameter under. So those are all the same categories. So it's sort of taking the functionality of the parameter window and taking it outside into the plugin. So all of that works sort of how you would expect it to work. The sets are where you maintain which parameters are a part of which sets. I'm going to skip that one for a second. We'll go back to that. But the log, after you run it, it'll give you a log of which things were successful and which things were not successful in adding them to the file. And there's a couple of different reasons why they would be unsuccessful. And I have never used the show debug data, but I'm sure Jeremy would love that. Jeremy, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I think you were the one that actually pointed me to this in the beginning.
Yep, I was. Yep.
Yeah, this is super great. Love it. So the target files allows you to apply these variables either to the active file. So since I was in this file when I opened the plugin, that's the one. If I just have this apply to active file selected, if I say apply to select files, I can point it to any other family, and you can even do like a shift select and have multiple families that you're going to apply the parameters to. And I'm not going to do it, but if you hit open, it shows you a list of all of your target files in that window. So it was really great when I had a list of parameters that, when we started adding like the blue brand and instance ID and all of the parameters that we didn't initially have inside of our families, this was the easiest and fastest way to add all of those new parameters to the families without having to go through, open each one individually, go into the window, add parameter. That would have taken me a day, and now I can do it in minutes. And the way that you do that is you just select whichever set you want to add the parameters for, and you can see it highlights them in blue and shows them up over here. And then make sure that your target file is set where you want it to go, and then hit this little do it button. And actually, what is this? This is a generic model. I'll Paulus, this is yours if you're on the call. So I want to select generic model. This is event hood. And I can see these are the parameters that I want. Some parameters, as you all know, like blue material is sometimes an instance parameter and sometimes a type parameter, depending on what the family is. You can't save sort of multiple versions of the blue material parameter. You just have to remember as you're applying it to the families, like, oh, for this type of family, it's a type parameter, but for exterior doors, for example, interior material. Oh wait, it did save it. I thought it didn't save it. Excellent. It's even smarter than I thought. But you have to define it by set, it looks like. All right, so we're going to say do it. This button, be very, very careful with. And when I say be careful with it, I mean do not ever select it. I initially was really excited about this because sometimes we have duplicate versions of a parameter named the same thing. I know callout code is one of those parameters, and I think at one point it was created as a parameter in the shared parameter file, and then someone made a new parameter called the same thing after the old one was deleted, but we have duplicates of it. And I was thinking, oh, this will be great. I'll be able to overwrite the old version with the new version. The problem with doing it this way is if it overwrites a parameter, it also gets rid of the value for that parameter. So if you have, all of these families in Blue Standard that have data already inside them, and you use that overwrite existing parameters, it just deletes all of the data out of it. So don't click this button. It means we still have to manage duplicates. If there's an old version of a parameter and a new version together, we still have to manage that manually and manually delete the old one and put the new one in. But it'll tell you when I say, when I hit the do it button in the log, it'll tell me which ones it could not add to the family because they already exist. So let's just run it right now. Oh, the last thing before I run it though, this save supplemental, that saves all of the information about the sets that you have and what parameters are in those sets. And those supplemental files, I believe they're similar to shared parameter files where if you install the parameter jerk in Revit, you can open my supplemental file and it'll give you all of my groups that I've maintained and all of their names and all of that sort of stuff. So we should all be able to share one definition of these sets and not have to each individually maintain them. But that's something that we should check out as other people install this. And that supplemental file is in the shared parameters folder with the shared parameters. So you can see it's this file right here, blue parameters, M3D, param jerk supplemental, and then these are all of the backup files of that supplemental, which I can probably get rid of, but I'll do that in a second after I make sure that everything is right in this supplemental file. But to save a new version of the supplemental, just say save supplemental, and it gives you this really scary warning, file should have saved. It doesn't tell you it actually saved, but it has a backup 17, so I know it actually saved. But first time I saw that, I was like, should have, that's not confidence inspiring. All right, so target files, let's do it to active file. Have that selected, everything's right over there. This is not selected. All right, we're going to say do it. The drawback of not doing this is every time you get a parameter which already exists in the family that is in this list that it tries to write, it says, oh, sorry, I can't do that because it's already in the family. So you have to hit OK. And so for if you have families that are 90% good and 10% of the parameters are missing, you just end up hitting OK over and over and over, but still better than adding these manually to all the families. So it looks like I had all of my parameters already inside the family. Well done, Paulus. Hit OK. Go over to the log. I don't know why it's like that. Usually it gives you one line for every one. But you can see result log parameter exists, no permission given to overwrite. So if this family, I'm going to close it down, if this family didn't already have all those parameters, it would have added those parameters in here. You still have to go in and fill in the value for that parameter. It just adds it. There's no place to say, assign this value to it. But at least you don't have to go in and add everything manually and go through all of the checkboxes. All right. Anybody have questions about that? No. Awesome. All right. So yeah, I think this will be a really easy way to make sure that everybody is adding the same parameters to the same family categories, and to make sure that everything sort of has all of the parameters that we're going to be using in our schedules, and all of the BOM parameters and all of those sorts of things. So if you're making a new family, instead of having to look it up or ask yourself like, oh, do I need action? Do I need blue material in this one? Hopefully we can have all of that stuff sort of defined inside of these sets, so that you don't have to really think about it. You just have to, open your family, go in here, select the thing, select your target files if you want to do it that way, and then just say do it. All right. On a related note having to do with parameters and efficiency, recently we needed some, like our grills and registers and diffusers were all in separate families, and we decided that we don't really care to have the supply and the return separated. It doesn't really make sense from our standpoint. We really just care about the size so that we can put it in the right place on an interior elevation. And so I decided that we would just collapse all of those into a single family. Where is it? Registers and diffusers. So similar to making a type catalog like we did for the windows and doors, you can use Excel to make that catalog, but instead of adding all of the different types on the loading of the family, you can add them in the family editor by using insert import family types. Works exactly the same as the type catalogs. There's really no difference. You still have to make the CSV file. The one difference is that you don't have to have the exact same name between the family and the CSV file. So you can see this one is called registers and diffusers _ catalog, whereas my family name is just registers and diffusers. Because you get this dialog box and it's not automatically trying to find it on load, you can name it whatever you want, and then when you just say import family types, you just go in there, select it, and hit open, and it does exactly the same thing that the rest of the type catalogs allow you to do. It gives you options on loading it: import only new types, import all types, and overwrite existing types if they have the same name. And then this one, you can just sort of clean out everything that's in the family and only retain that which is in the CSV file, or only add that which is in the CSV file. And that is really helpful if you have sort of old versions of a family, or old types within a family that you want to get rid of. Like, let's say you spend some time and you update. I think I changed the naming on some of these, and I didn't want to have a 650 return air grill 14x4 and a return air grill 4x14. I could just use that option on the import family types and say delete everything that's in there right now, and start fresh and only do the things which are in your Excel file. Yeah, I knew that file was broken. and now it's going through a million of them. So I'm just holding down the enter key. I think it probably also, oh, it crashed my Revit. Excellent. See, this is what happens when I'm not 100% ready. But yeah, that shouldn't be really news to any of you. You're all familiar with how type catalogs work, and most of you have looked inside the Excel files and CSVs and all of that sort of stuff. So just one more implementation of that sort of logic. But you can see using parameter jerk and using this type catalog idea together, you can sort of make your parametric family as a base, add all of the parameters to that family with parameter jerk, and then fill in all of those parameters using this import family type functionality. So that's a little glimpse into some of the time-saving hints that I've figured out in doing all of the family creation that I've been involved with. And as you guys are making new families, I think that'll be a really easy way to maintain standards and make sure that all of our families have the right parameters inside of them so that everybody can use them and all of our schedules work out how we want them to. One other thing that I know I mentioned at our last meeting that I still haven't been able to go into or make any progress on because of other things that I've been having to deal with, but our shared parameter file has a lot of stuff inside of it right now that should probably be cleaned out. I'm not sure exactly how to go about doing that because various people have added various things and are using them, however they needed to make them and use them for the projects that you guys were doing. But as we're trying to reuse schedules between projects, we need to have those parameters standardized within our families. Initially, it was a BOM thing where we don't care about which parameters are in there. We just want the BOM parameters to be right, so that comes through properly. But now that we're transferring schedules between projects and trying to have our families work in those projects and have everything be standardized, I think we're going to have to tighten up that shared parameter file a little bit. So like I said, I'm not sure exactly how to go about doing this because there have been 50 different people in that file making things for various reasons, but maybe I'll just have to go through there and mark out the questionable ones and just sort of come up with a standard and say these specific parameters are going away, or come up with some sort of consensus with you guys about how to reorganize that stuff. So if you have any suggestions as to how we can go through that and everybody can have the things that they need and not have things deleted that they're currently using. Like I don't want to mess stuff up for you, and I feel like if I go through it and just say, all right, I'm deleting these 50 parameters because they don't make sense to me, I'm going to have 50 people super pissed off at me, and I'm going to have to remake a bunch of stuff and slow you guys down, and I don't think it'll be pretty. So if you guys know what all of this stuff is, if you've created a bunch of parameters that may or may not be standard, I think the BOM stuff is pretty good. I think most of it's pretty good. It's just this object parameters category. I don't even know what that is. I think there's a bunch of stuff in here. Like I know we have action and we also have blue action. Yeah, so I think that's sort of one of the last steps in cleaning up our parameters and making them standardized. But I can see in the very near future if we have all of our parameters standardized, all of those exist within sets within parameter jerk. Everybody has parameter jerk and access to that supplemental file. I could see it being really easy for us to make sure that everything has the right parameters inside of it, all of them schedule properly, and all of the BOM stuff is in all of the families as we need it. All right. Anything else before I move on? Okie dokie. All right, I have one more thing. Well, actually, I think I'm just going to stop there for today. I was going to show you, I know some of you are working with fascia and trying to get that into the BOM. And I do feel like that's something that's worth us going over, but I don't really have it set up right now, and I can't remember which projects it's in. So maybe I'll try to cover that next week when I'm more prepared and can be really clear about that and not confuse you guys. And then there's also the how do we add trim to those curtain panel families. Maya worked out a really good way of doing that and made profiles for that. So those are the things that I really want to show you, but I feel like I would sort of be stumbling over it right now. But if any of you absolutely need to know those things or are having issues with it, let me know. But otherwise, I'll cover that stuff next week. Oh, wait. Yep, sorry. Go ahead.
Dude, just a couple of quick questions. One was we were having a discussion here in Ann Arbor. Are we supposed to be modeling closet hanger rods and shelves?
Those were two more families that Paulus just created that I was looking at. It's really, I think, a matter of do they need to be in the BOM? And my guess is that they do.
The answer is yes. Yes.
Okay.
Seriously?
Well, Laura just walked out of the room conveniently as this question was coming up. But if those items, I don't know if they're P parts, they purchase them for each project, or if they have those in stock. Let's see here. I'm just looking in the...
Can we get that answer before we all start modeling it? Because I feel like that doesn't seem like something that we would necessarily be modeling.
Let's see here.
I think this issue really comes back to the relationship between design and procurement and what design is ultimately responsible for. And I know we've kind of tried to establish, like, if it's in the BOM, then we need to do it, but it's stuff like this that, you know, it takes time to do, and I don't know if it's really worth it.
So I see, yeah, and what we're trying to work out is that the most difficult ones are the ones where we work with consultants to figure out what the specs are. So that's, you know, roofing parts, stairs, HVAC indirect parts, things like that. But these, which, you know, are annoying to get in the model now, but if they were in clean reuse models and bombable, and they are purchased individually for each project, then it does make sense for them to come through in the BOM. So,
But imagine if a client, like, and I'm sort of answering my own question, but imagine if a client has a custom closet, and it's super custom, like it's not just, you know, a bypass door and a 2-foot whatever. It's like a walk-in with lots of shelves and clothes bars everywhere. It would make sense for design to specify that equipment, I guess. But then we have to get into the some of the issues like, well, does the hanger bar come in this length? Does it need to be a different size?
They're supposed to be filling out the custom spec form at PO, so we have those parts in the database beforehand.
So then it's not up to design to design like a walk-in closet. It's up to a salesperson or a PM, or I guess whoever's doing the conceptual design.
That
to do
would
that
be my
research.
guess.
Are you talking about a spatial customization or a product customization? Because I think that's a very different thing as far as the BOM is concerned. I mean, if it's a stock part and you're just getting more or less of that stock part or an additional fastener or something like that, but it's already stocked, it's not an issue. But if you're calling out like a custom, you know, finish, like a closed bar or hooks or something like that, I mean, I think that's the only time something custom would come through from sales, correct?
Yeah, the question is if these closet parts are stock parts or if they're purchased individually for projects. And I can ask Laura when she gets back. But if they, if they are purchased parts and they are customized by the client, we're supposed to get a custom spec form that specifies what we'll need to purchase differently for that.
Okay, so that was one question.
Well, can I make one point before we move on? I think I don't want to speak for Kevin. He speaks well enough for himself, but I think there is maybe we make assumptions when custom things come through that we automatically assume this thing needs to be in the BOM. And I think we need to have a not necessarily a review by procurement, but have procurement weigh in on specific types of custom things and whether that makes sense as a procurement method for them. Because let's say we have a super custom, to take your example, Kevin, we have a super custom closet and there's, a million things that a client wants inside of there, and they're going to need, procurement or layout drawings for that, which are going to call out those million individual things. If that's the procurement method via a drawing, then I don't think it makes sense for us to go through the trouble of bombifying all of those elements. So, I think for things that we're going to reuse and, custom things which are, I don't know what to call them, standard custom things or repeatable custom things, then okay, yeah, if that makes sense as a procurement method for those things, then yes, we put them into the BOM. But I think there are other things that aren't necessarily procured in that fashion, but we're not qualified to make that decision. I think we need to get more information from procurement on how they're eventually going to need those, need a drawing or a BOM in order to procure those things.
So yeah, that's right. And if, for example, if there's custom size shelves, they're probably going to want to see that on a drawing to order it correctly.
So maybe that's the difference, right? Like if something requires, and really I kind of regret that I bring up this custom closet thing, because it's not really the issue. Like if it's so custom that it needs special attention via a drawing, then of course it's going to need some BOM information, right? Because then without that BOM information, procurement's not really going to know what to order.
See,
But
I was going.
Well, we do that with cabinet. We do that with cabinets. We don't put any cabinets on the BOM, and we just give them a drawing.
Right. I was saying that if something is complicated enough to require a drawing, then it doesn't need to be in the BOM because the BOM isn't sufficient to order from.
Well, then you run the risk because if whoever's drawing this custom closet doesn't include the correct amount of information, then it just becomes like there's no way to check that.
Well, that's the problem with the drawing.
Right.
We don't want to have to struggle to keep information in sync. That's why we don't output the cabinets on the BOM, and we don't output the Anderson windows on the BOM, even though...
Yeah, because they have their own system of procurement, right? But if it's like a closet with shelving rods and whatever, presumably we build it and we procure all of the necessary components to make it happen. But if it's a regular closet, I guess we're coming back to the question whether we need to include that bar and shelf, because it's not going to be drawn in any drawing. And if the presumption is, ultimately procurement doesn't have to look at any drawing and they just have to look at this BOM sheet to procure every single piece outside of
Well, no,
cabinetry and windows and whatever.
That's not the direction that we're going. There will be some specs that are not on the BOM that are P parts that they need drawings for, or some other type of deliverable.
But are they specific to that area?
Are they specific to what area?
So like outside of cabinetry, windows and doors, anything that has its own procurement method, are there parts, P parts, that procurement requires a drawing to procure?
I'm not sure how they order SIPs. I think SIPs are P parts. And I'm not sure how they do roofs or stairs.
So how, do we know how the factory was dealing with closet rods and shelves before the bomb?
I don't know that. I need to ask Laura.
Well, we were doing shop drawings for them and procurement drawings for them. Right. And they would order off of those.
Okay.
And so those were hand-drafted schedules, not automated schedules, and that was what they were looking at and checking
Yeah, were
against
there
drawings?
even schedules on the closet drawings, or they just kind of worked off the drawing?
I think they just worked off the
Hi,
drawing.
this is Victoria. They were actually on the specification sheet, so any item that wasn't listed on the interior elevations was listed on the spec sheet. So where you would see like what the roofing material or siding material was, you would also see what the closet shelvings were.
But you didn't specify like dimensions or anything.
Well, I think the only thing is specified that it was 12-inch deep MDF and then the rod and the socket.
So they would still need a drawing to actually buy the thing, right?
Laura just stepped that back
They come
in.
in stock lengths, and then they just cut them to fit per the closet when it's there. So basically, like it's a 12-inch piece, a 12-inch deep piece of MDF that's probably a stock 8 feet, 10 feet long. Same with the bar, and it probably has like a trim kit at the end. And then, they look at the drawing and they say, okay, here's the closets, and they're going to cut them to fit once they're probably even built at that point. I'd imagine that they've got to be stock parts, but I guess if Laura's there, she can give us the final answer. We've all been waiting
My
for it.
answer is I think they should be stock parts, but I'm not positive that they are stock parts. But we can find out. We're here. We can find out. Yeah, I can find out today.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I guess at the end of the day, when we do need to include all of this other stuff, like let's say at the end of some conversation we say, okay, design is responsible for modeling and including closet, shelves, and clothes bars. Presumably that's work that, takes time and isn't in like a clean model, because I don't really know what the clean model or seed models are going to look like. That work really needs to be included in the schedule. And maybe it takes a second, but all these different seconds add up to, all of a sudden we have to model all this other stuff, and it's going to take a day. What's
happening now is there's a conflict, because we're stuck in between having to do drawings that the shop drawing team should be doing and inflexible schedules. So I'm not saying that the schedule should be extended because of the extra work that design has to do, but that's not, I don't think anyone on this call is able to change schedules.
And I'm sure we all realize that, but I guess what I'm advocating for is for people to raise enough stink about it, and for people not to be working late because of the added scope of work. But I guess that's up to everyone else.
Okay, yeah, I think we should move on. I mean, everything always sort of comes down to, you know, I feel like other project things and other design things end up creeping into the Revit conversation just because this is sort of where the rubber meets the road. But yeah, I think all of these questions and decisions are definitely outside of my scope. So I think we need to kick this can up the road to whoever needs to deal with it.
We'll get back to you guys on the closet parts.
Okay. Andrew, did you have another question? Do you remember it now that we've derailed you for long enough?
That's exactly what Brandon just said to me. But I don't remember the question, but I do remember a kind of point of order that I had, which was
You have the
noticing
floor.
Thank you. Am I recognized by the senator from Texas?
I think you need someone to second my recognition of you, but yes.
So I'm just noticing with the Windows, with a bunch of projects in Ann Arbor, that people have out-of-date Windows. And I think that's one of those things where people are loading some of the new Windows, but not all of the new window types, and then the naming conventions of them are slightly different. So people are still maintaining older Windows in their file. One really easy way to check is if a casement window doesn't have a, or I guess the first thing is if your window has a V or an S and there are no parentheses around the V or the S, that means it's an old window. And if your casements don't have a V or an S, that means it's an old window. And that goes for molds. That goes for single windows and for all the molds. I know that sounds like really finicky, but that's a really easy way to check if they're new or old. And that was just a kind of naming convention that Laura, Luke, and I decided on so that it was a little more clear and consistent.
So every window has a V or S?
Yeah.
And if you have questions about what are the standard names of things, you can go into the type catalog in Blue Process, or Blue Standard, and look at those and just double check that everything is right if it's not so obvious. Yep, sorry, I was on mute. I have one last little hint that I want to show you guys, and seriously, it will take 2 seconds, but I'm hoping it'll be one of those that you love because it's so easy. So I've noticed when I've been in a couple of different project models that there are text notes that are sitting next to dimension strings, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that if you want to, you can associate and have notes on the dimension string rather than having a separate text element. And the way that you get to that is if you select the dimension string and then click on the text of the dimension itself, it gives you the ability to replace the text so it no longer shows the dimension, or you can add above, below, prefix, and suffix text. In this case, it probably doesn't make sense, but often you'll say, this is the minimum dimension, it can be larger. So you hit OK, and now that is contained inside. So you can drag this around, and that updates with it. All right, that's it. That's the only thing I wanted to show you.
Hey, Luke.
Yep.
Not to sidetrack, but I just saw something in this model I was going to ask if you could illustrate. Like, if you scroll down to the free space, and maybe like everybody knows this, and I'm the only person who doesn't, but I'll ask it anyway. So where those clerestory windows are tagged above the nano walls or whatever those doors are, is that just a dumb tag or is that a smart one? And if so, how do you get that to show if your window is above your view range? Because one issue I've noticed with the windows is the tags generally, well, at least a lot of the newer window families, if the view range is touching them at all, it'll show like the entire outline of the window if it's above, but you need to be touching the window in order to show the tag on the newer family, so I was wondering how to work around that.
I'm not exactly sure how this is done. My guess, without going in and testing it is that if you change your view range and tag it and then switch your view range back to where it's not showing up anymore, I think the tag goes away, doesn't it?
It does go away, and yeah. Well, it just in that instance, like where you got something above.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is the case where you would want to do that, where you don't want to make a clear story plan, but you want to say yes, there are there's this CO4, which is I'm pretty sure is those 4 horizontal windows above. Does anybody who did this?
Wouldn't you see that on an elevation anyway?
Yeah, but you might want to have it on the floor plan.
Hey Luke,
Yeah?
this is Victoria. So I've done this before. So the way that I did it was I changed the view setting, and then I used the line type tool to change it to be overhead dash lines. And then when you change back to view, those dash lines stay, and you can tag those lines.
Yeah, I've done that with lines before, but I've never done that with tags. Does that work with tags as well?
No, I did that with the window. So I panned over, so I changed the view setting so I could see the clear story window.
So Victoria, is that why there's a plan region there? So that plan region has a different view range than the rest of the plan?
No, that's why you can see, like for this project, that's why you can see like where the window is dashed. So the clear story window is actually coming in as a dashed overhead. And so if you change that window, and then you can reset back your view settings back to like 4 feet or whatever, and then you can tag that dashed line of the window.
Oh, so because you changed the style of the line, even though the view range isn't cutting through it anymore, it treats it as if it is.
Yeah, so then it shows it dashed, and then you can tag that dash. So that's the only way I found that I can keep the tag associated with the actual window.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with the line work tool, the way that you change the way that looks is where is it? Is it this one? Yeah, line work tool, LW. So if you click that, you can change any existing model geometry line to any other style. And what Victoria was saying is that if you change your view range so that you can see the window, doing the normal view range method, then use your line work tool, change a couple of the lines, like there's this one which has that has the dash line on it for the overhead instead of the whatever the normal model geometry line is. Then go back into your view range, reset your view range to what it was before, and because Revit's sort of smart, it knows that you want to see those lines in this view because you use the line work tool. It says, oh, okay, this is visible even though it's outside of the view range, and then you can tag it.
One thing to note, you have to do the overhead. You can't do like dashed lines with that. It has to be the specific line type of overhead.
Okay, I did not know that. Good to know. Do you know if it works for any of these other bracketed ones?
I don't know, but I know that the bracketed ones have special Revit characteristics and properties.
Right, these are sort of the standard Revit ones, and the rest of these you can sort of change around. But yeah, the bracketed ones are special. So my guess is that you could probably use any of these, but definitely the overhead one.
Yeah, I've used both the overhead and the hidden. Usually I'll do overhead if it's something I want to show that's above and tag, and if it's something below, I'll use the hidden.
Cool, thanks, Victoria.
Great question. Well done.
So that's the kind of tool that we could use for like mini splits or stuff like that to get them to show up in the plan without having to draw detail lines.
Yes, exactly.
A closet show.
Shut your mouth.
We'll hit him.
All right, guys. What, do you have other stuff? We got 4 minutes.
I was just gonna add on that last note too. It's a good way to show overhangs above too, if you, because I know a lot of times people do that with detail lines, but sometimes that's easier, and then it changes with the geometry. Okay, that's all. Bye. Please do that.
All right. Okay, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I will hopefully have time to get something more solid and comprehensible for next week in terms of showing the fascia and showing the trim on the sill bonnet for curtain walls. All right, that's it, guys. I'm out.
Thanks, Luke.